I am Raja Chidambaram. In this episode, I am interviewing Maryse Barak, who lives in Cape Town, South Africa. And she is a faculty in Time to Think. And she has been a consultant, facilitator, trainer, and executive coach for many years. This interview was done for understanding how to be an effective thinking partnership teacher. Since I found the interview so valuable, we decided that we can publish it and hope you also find it valuable. Thank you. Okay, so Maryse, from your experience as a thinking partnership teacher, do you think would be most valuable for me to know?
Okay. All right. So I'm really going to go straight from what is most meaningful to me. Okay. And at any time, come in and ask me another question. So no matter what somebody knows or doesn't know, I do think that the most powerful capacity is the personal capacity of presence. So it's what it takes in my life to have brought me to this point where I have confidence that my way of being present will guarantee, I can say that word, will guarantee a context for the other in which they can be free. That's really for me that. So what does it mean to be present? So it's, this, it's been most of my life has been about learning how to be present in the moment, how to live to my highest vision. So having just turned 74 this week, I look and I say, I'm doing okay. So in the work of teaching the Time to Think partnership, yes, there is the theory, there is the practice, there is the structure, there is the continual discovery of what is new. For me, all of that resides inside the capacity of the teacher to be present. And so, being present, obviously, in the Time to Think context is about being not only familiar, but being able to embody the components as best I can. And that means that it's part of my daily practice. So the key thing for any Time to Think teacher of any kind and facilitator for me is the question that I am attempting to answer in my life, which is, how do you want to be? And if you know how you want to be, this is my question to me. How do you do it in this situation, in that situation, in the other? But anyway, so that is the biggest piece, is about presence, because I do see the evidence in other people's ease, courage, freedom to explore, that isn't done by anything I have done, nothing. So I'm left thinking, these old teachings about the ability to be present fully in any moment are the most powerful element. So that's my biggest piece, really, for me. It's the biggest piece. And I like what I said earlier, because increasingly as I'm getting older, I have more confidence in that than in any knowing of anything. Last week I was working in Belgium with a group of scientists. So it was a bit overwhelming. You know, it was just completely out of I don't know anything. But my confidence in that I knew what they needed was what I could provide so that they could connect and think together. So that's the biggest piece. And then the other side then is the teaching side. Yeah. And well, you've experienced me. So, you know, I have to be humble and tell you that it's taken me since 2018, we started with the considerations. 2018. So that's like 5 years to get comfortable, to let go the old way of teaching, and to, you know, and to really engage with what Nancy is saying. How can we shift from teaching so that others learn to teaching so they can understand? And I mean, that's what you're doing. You're already teaching so that other people understand. It's taken me quite a long time to learn that ability. So presence has been my security. So yeah. Can I just stop now and say any questions, and am I on the track that is useful to you?
Yeah, it is quite interesting, because probably what you're saying makes sense to me quite a lot. Please continue with your thinking. So, Maryse, what more do you think, feel, or want to say?
So, in getting to the practical of the Time to Think partnership course, I don't think people know what they're saying yes to when they come on the program. I really don't. No matter what so what they think and what they experience are two completely different things. So in order to have them have the best experience, I think as teachers, we have to know really well how to create the context for utmost ease and safety and willingness to explore and be very vulnerable. So any thinking session, you know, whether it's a one-on-one or anything, is a journey towards vulnerability, and intimacy, actually, no matter what we're thinking about. We're actually revealing a part of ourselves that we do not normally reveal to people, not even to ourselves, because the way we think out loud in the company of someone's attention is different to the way we think for ourselves in our own heads. So it's vulnerable making, it's intimate, it's all of these things. So as a teacher, for me, the how we begin any process is vital. How to go, well, everything, you know, really, how to go slow so that we can go fast later. How to generate between the people there and me enough safety that people are willing to risk just a little, because it's only when they've risked a little that they can later risk a little more. You know, it's it works that way. And so the rounds at the beginning, the setup, for me, are very precious. Every moment is a moment of construction of the container in which we're going to do our collective work. I still, as you know, I do use flip charts, I do use visuals. Nancy doesn't use any ever. She doesn't. I do. I like to. I'm using less and less, but I still do believe that some people, I know I do, I'm more visual. And so I like to honor the different learning ways that different personalities and thinking methodologies have. They're different. And then the whole process that Nancy uses, which is really, I've forgotten his name, the learning theory, but you get told a few things, you plunge in, you experiment, you do it, you reflect on the doing, you experiment a little more, and on it goes. That process, I think, is familiarity with that. And then the teaching, I love what you said, that you did all the findings in your own words. I think that's brilliant. And so for me, it's in teaching the partnership courses, what are the essentials that we have to teach up front enough that people can plunge in and then learn as we do? And I think that's continually changing, because every time we have different people, it'll be different. So my outline for my courses, I have a basic outline, but it changes every time I have a new group because of the combination, the quality, the questions that are asked. So the combination of a few findings, I like people to think about in their own experience, who or what most supported their independent thinking. What did these people do? Because in most of our lives, we have had that experience. So we can say it, oh, this happened and that, and this person did that. And so we can begin to see how the behaviors of the components were present that most enabled us. And we can add that to the findings, etc. And then lots of thinking pairs. And of course, I'm sure like Trisha, in my partnership course, I will do one session with every single person first and use that before they begin to do it. And then we do it in rounds. Okay, ask me again, unless there's something for you to say, because what else?
Yeah. Maryse, what more do you think or feel or want to say?
I think for me personally, as a teacher, I have to be quite forgiving of myself when I've screwed up. Especially over the last 5 years, as we let go of the map and the structures and all of the stuff that came. So again, this is, personal disciplines. So being forgiven. And I love, what Nancy speaks of as a teacher, to be both expert and explorer. That combination of, yes, I know quite a lot, actually. And then there's all that I do not know. And they live together. And I think, as I'm speaking now, that a teacher's ability to navigate this relationship between expert and explorer is something that encourages the students to do the same. Yeah, I think that is very encouraging. Because I've often had times, I've had brilliant students who, as we've gone through some complexity, I've sort of gone away a certain way. And then the student, let's just for an example, would say, but wasn't the outcome inside, wasn't the assumption inside the further outcome? And I'll say, oh yeah, I didn't notice, and the student has picked it up beautifully. So humility, being happy to be humble, gets a little bit easier now. I always wanted to know that I was good and I was the expert. And now it's getting easier to be humble. Yeah, I think, with the teaching, it's the practice is the practice and the practice. And then with the partnership course is the understanding that at the end of that course, people will cognitively know very little that they will walk away with. But they will have had an embodied experience of that possibility, which is very powerful. So they'll know, they've got all the companions, they'll know the considerations, theoretically, they'll know the findings, they may know a further outcomes, action, understanding, why feeling. Hopefully they'll have played with a transition question, even if it's contrived, just to be able to say it, and maybe a couple other things if you're lucky. But mostly they have learned by the end of that time to give impeccable attention. They have learned that in their bones. And I just want to share a new learning for me, because I have one of my students who just did only the foundation course, okay? Only the foundation course. And the book and the audio. And she's out there giving all these thinking sessions pro bono to her friends and writing me all her reflections. She's never done the partnership course.
Wow.
And as she's just teaching herself, as she gets more at ease in giving attention, lots and lots is happening. I mean, what she writes me is amazing. But when we chat, because she must go and do what she does, My biggest learning, and this is what I'm telling her, is that you learn to be a thinking partner, both by being the partner and by being the thinker. And she is only learning how to partner because there's nobody to be her partner. I'm actually looking for a few people to help her, because the learning that happens when you hear the question coming from outside in, that learning cannot be theoretical. You've got to feel it in your body, in your bones. You've got to see how the question lands and what happens to your feelings and your thoughts. And so that's why in the Thinking Partnership course, we have to practice both. Being the thinker, being the partner, being the thinker, being the partner. Because learning is happening all the time. We aren't only learning when we are attempting to partner somebody through a particular trajectory. So this is for me a much deeper lesson than I've just had in the last 3 months, because it's been in my face with this wonderful woman who is very brave and doing wonderful work. And it reminded me, I wondered a little bit if she wasn't having the similar experience to Nancy. When Nancy started, there was no thinking environment. There was nobody. She was just trying her best and doing, and then writing down and reflecting, and she kept on doing. And this woman obviously has all the privilege of Nancy's work of the last 50 years. But she's learning her own way forward. And I really see how learning happens when we are thinkers. And that's very profound for me now. It's no good just saying, oh, no, it's fine. I'll be your partner. I want to practice being a thinker. Okay, so that was another wave. Okay, I'm ready for another question.
Maryse, what more do you think, feel, or want to say?
I knew, when you said you wanted me to interview me, I said, oh, yes, I love it. I love it because I never know what's going to come from my mouth and my heart. And I love listening. I love it. That's why I think, oh my God, that sounds pretty good. I do know some things from my experience. And that moves me. It's like a blessing. I've been blessed with this experience and knowing. I know these are all very sort of high level things. It's not very practical in the sense of the teaching. And one of the findings is repetition. And so I'm not at all intimidated by repetition or by thinking that my students will think, but we've done this already. No, we haven't. We did it this way. Now we're going to do it again. It's completely fresh. It's completely new. We are all different. What new insights can emerge in this moment? And that's why this work is so connected to being present in the moment. You cannot disengage it from that. I love, when you do rounds and you invite people to say, what is your freshest thought now? It's such an acknowledgement that your mind is this ever refreshed aspect of our being that offers insights, new observations, old ideas coupled with new insights, and then something different emerges. So repetition is good, and to also sometimes invite our students to reshape their relationship to repetition. I know it's an insight, that we say, it's a finding. You'll say, what more do you think or feel or want to say, and you'll repeat it, etc. But to have them shift. And that's one of the pieces that you only learn when you are a thinker. It's when you hear what seems to be the same question again, and it evokes a new wave of thought. It's very, very magical in its way. So do you have any, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any things that are more specific to the teaching? Any questions related to that would help you? No? Is that okay? Okay.
So what I have as a question when listening to you is, when I was preparing for this practicum, I went through the beautiful slides you used.
I used.
For our thinking partnership course. So one of the things that came from that is you talk about how do we live the 10 components is as one of the key things, right? So my question is, in your experience of how are there ritual practices? How do you remind yourself that you have to live the 10 components every day?
I don't do ritual practices per se. Ever since I learned about thankfulness in my early 20s, I would say that is a continual practice in my life. But it isn't attached to things. So I don't give thanks for things or I was taught a long, long time ago that thankfulness, gratitude is a state of being, and that I am thankful because I am here. Even if the situation is terrible, I am here. So that is really in my system from when I was about 24 years old. So that's 50 years practice, pretty good. So that's a practice. What is a newer practice for me since the thinking environment learning, but I don't think it's new because of the language, is how to embody the incisive question, for instance, as a behavior. If it's a behavior, what does it look like? And I think, again, I've told you a bit of our story. So we've had a sort of a spiritual journey since our 20s, similar to Marion, Marion is the only one, Beth, a little bit of Beth, yeah. So we've always had an attitude that human beings are extraordinary, always. They are upright. In essence, human beings are upright and well and perfect. Okay. So the incisive question for me is embodied in my interactions with people when I do hold an assumption that says, you have everything you need. You are whole. No matter what, you are whole. So I have that. It drops away when I get worried and anxious about my daughters. That's when it's a challenge, when I'm concerned and worried. That attitude just, that a component seems to, disintegrate. But otherwise, in general, it's there. I have a practice, very little, tiny. Before I go to sleep at night, I sort of lay a hand of blessing on the people in my life or the people who need it. Nothing long, nothing, it's just... and I try is the operative word, do a mindfulness practice. Mindful, very, very Western, very simple, just mindful breathing, coming to the moment, watching the breath, watching the thoughts, watching the feelings, back to the, that. Those are practices. And I suppose of all of them, I still, every time I have the privilege of teaching this work, I am so grateful for the joy of creating these spaces. So I don't know if that answered your question. Did it?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Because I was basically, my whole idea was, if I can more and more embody the 10 components, not just in doing thinking session and thinking pair, just embody it as a person, I said, I will be an evolved human being. So that's where this question came yesterday. So I thought I will ask you, because I see you really, every time I have seen you, you really live the components, right? So that's where this question came.
Okay. And the difference one, I'm grappling with, how do we live that one? Prioritizing people's different identities and understanding their lived experience. Obviously, the journey to understand other people's lived experience is a long, forever one, because I get triggered. But prioritizing different group identities, I don't know. I don't know how one embodies that. I am looking at an Instagram post that I find it's really intriguing me, and I want to do the course of it. It's called Check Your Privilege. And a lot of it is about addiction to whiteness. Not only whiteness as in color, but whiteness as in a state that most of the world says, oh, this is the way, and how to lose that addiction. I'm interested in pursuing that. So I'm looking for ways how to live that component. Yeah.
So I think what you say, I think difference is a very, very difficult component. And it has connection to equality in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you say is true. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to add, Maryse?
Well, I don't know. Are there any more? I feel I haven't really answered. I've answered questions around my atmosphere, what matters to me. Are there any sort of more practical pieces in terms of the teaching that would be helpful to you?
No, I think you have given Maryse. See, for example, for me, whatever you said, right? The presence is important. Teaching without teaching is important. And then if they learn how to be the thinkers as well as thinking partners, more than adequate. And then the quality of attention if they have learned. Yeah. And all this, you beautifully said, comes from the presence you bring than the teaching you do.
Yeah, well done. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's developing the muscle of attention and interest. And attention and interest and an appreciative perspective is the best soil for the other to begin to go anywhere they go. I mean, there's just, yeah.
Okay. So, Maryse, it's time. I'm very conscious about your time. I want to appreciate, I think today, the wisdom figure you are. Yeah. Yeah, I have always seen it, but today I think since I was interviewing you, you were throwing pearls of wisdom. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. And Raja, yeah, you do give me so much joy. What I am loving today is the way your originality pierces through anything to make it your own, to own it. Yeah, and it's owning it, but it's owning it for benefit. But it's the way your intelligence pierces through to the core. I find that most inspiring. So I love your work. I do want to see it.